How would you describe depression to someone who's never had it? Imagine that you get up one day, and spend that day doing one of your favorite hobbies. You get to hang out with your friends, doing things you love. There's good food and nothing bad happens that day. Heck, let's even imagine the weather is perfect. And at the end of that day, doing all the things you love around the people you like in the best possible way, you feel average. Okay. Not awful. That's one big part of depression. It's not that you feel sad more often, it's that the whole range of your feelings shifts downward. A normal person feels bad sometimes, feels good sometimes, and feels okay or average most of the time. Depression shifts that whole window down, so that your best day is okay, your worst feels awful, and most of the time, you're hurting. And if you're like most people, your brain is this amazing pattern matching thing with no off switch. Normally, if you feel angry or tired, you start looking for a cause. Oh, I forgot to eat breakfast, or I was really hoping my boss would like my proposal, and he didn't, and then things make sense. But if you're depressed, you feel awful all the time for no clear reason at all, and over time, that alone is pretty distressing. I've said it before, feeling fucked up when you're in a fucked up situation doesn't mean you're a fuck up, it means you're a human being. If your dad has dementia and your mom can't walk anymore and you just put down your dog, you should feel awful. But when dad's got caregiver and so does mom, and you have a decent job and your spouse loves you and you still feel awful all the time, that's depression. And your tireless pattern matching brain eventually says stuff like, hey, why don't you blow up your job / marriage / friendships, that way at least the way you're feeling right now will make sense. Or, if things go on long enough, your brain will say, we're hurting all the time. We tried doing things we like, and we still hurt. We tried not doing things, and we still hurt. So clearly, the reason we're hurting is that we're still existing. What if we could change that?
For me, it was fatigue that was so intense I would avoid even going to the bathroom for as long as possible just to stay in bed. The second thing was the stark awareness that there isn't really anything that I'm longing for that would make a difference. For example, when you have a flu or something and you lay in bed feeling like crap, you know that in a couple days you will feel better. When I was depressed, there was no relief to look forward to. No light at the end of the tunnel. I couldn't think of a single thing that would make me happy.
The smallest task can feel impossible. The mere thought makes you feel worse.
Life is passing by and you don't enjoy the movie. You see yourself moving, talking, but it is not you. You do not feel, but you remember that feelings exist. You can't sleep and you can't be awake. Windows and bridges are calling you and you have to put big effort not to follow this call. Like being more bored than you can possibly imagine, but also not being able to imagine a single thing you actually want to do no matter how hard you try. Including thinking and breathing. It's different for everyone, but for me it's being tired all the time. You have moments when maybe you feel okay, but as soon as you start something you're tired. Just so tired. Edit. For spelling. It's not laziness. You feel so numb it's hard to even get out of bed to go to the toilet. You just feel numb all the time and get anger outbursts. Everything matters too much and nothing matters. Extreme apathy. Dream state. Everything is dull and heavy all at once. 1. Everything feels overwhelming. At my worst, something as simple as emptying the garbage 60 seconds at most felt like such an ordeal that I couldn't bring myself to do it. So I'd let it sit for weeks. 2. On a scale of 1 to 10, most people wake up at a 5. Good things bring 'em up. Bad things bring 'em down. But they're comfortably in that middle zone. When my depression was unchecked, my default state was 2. So even if something absolutely amazing happened, it still only brought me up to a 3 or 4. And only temporarily. Once the high wore off, I was back in the gutter. 3. You lose interest in your hobbies. You lose the motivation needed to find new hobbies. You find yourself with a free evening. And you could spend the entire thing just spinning around in your office chair, staring at the ceiling. Because you don't feel like doing anything. Sarah Silverman said it feels like being desperately homesick even though you're home. I'd agree, but modify it to feeling homesick for a home that doesn't exist. It almost feels like a physical thing that's weighing down on you. Like being covered in a wet blanket of sadness. But there's no way to take it off. It's so heavy that you know you can't do anything about it. So you just let it suffocate you. And it makes everything you enjoy less impactful. Colors seem dim. Food tastes bland. The song that meant the world to you now seems meaningless. Every positive thing is diminished. I'd recommend reading this. http://hyperbole_blogspot.com/2013/05/depression-part-2.html. You know the arc in Dragon Ball Z where Goku trains in 100x gravity and every little movement is extremely difficult for him. It's exactly like that. But you're not Goku. You just lay on the floor for 6 months. It's a nothingness. Someone from my old school killed herself and my mom said, I can't imagine it. Life being so dark that suicide feels like the only option. I wanted to tell her that it's not a darkness. It's just nothing and sadness all the time. Just clean apathy. And sometimes fear of getting in the car and having to drive somewhere alone. It's like seeing life through a black and white filter while constantly feeling exhausted with everything around you. It's the utter and complete lack of hope that eventually turns to apathy. Your body hurts. And you know there is nothing physically wrong with you. You are so tired, but sleep doesn't happen at all. Or when it does, it feels like you can't wake up. And at that point you don't even really want to. There is this nagging emptiness inside of you. Kind of like hunger. But nothing can fill it up, and eventually you go numb. If you do get sick, you don't bother going to a doctor because you hope whatever you have finally just gets worse and kills you in a way that you will feel guilt-free over. That's what it felt like for me. At least. Having a constant liar in your head that's telling you you're shit. You're a burden. You're stressing people out. People are disappointed in you. Etc. 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 At least that's it for me. Sometimes less prevalent than other times. Therapy has helped me a lot with managing symptoms, but when I go into a depressive wave, that liar is shouting. Cilantro tastes like soap to me. I wonder what it actually tastes like. That's akin to how I wonder how people without depression feel. I'd never know. Driving to the grocery store and knowing you need to buy milk and bread and getting a great parking spot but not having the energy to go in and buy energy. It feels like there is a greater gravitational force on your body that is pulling you to the core of the earth. Every step feels heavier. Moving your body is harder. No one else is suffering from this gravity issue. They are all moving normally. This is painfully obvious. So you go home. Milk and bread can wait for another day. A persistent and heavy cloud that hangs over your mind and heart, even on sunny days. It's like living someplace where it snows all the time. Some days it's only a couple of inches. It's a pain in the ass. But you still make it to work. The grocery store. Sure. Maybe you skip the gym or your friend's birthday party. But it is still snowing, and who knows how bad it might get tonight. Some days it snows a foot. You spend an hour shoveling out your driveway and are late to work. Your back and hands hurt from shoveling. You leave early because it's really coming down out there. Your boss notices. Some days it snows 4 feet. You shovel all morning but your street never gets plowed. You are not making it to work. Or anywhere else for that matter. You are so sore and tired you just get back in the bed. By the time you wake up, All your shoveling has filled back in with snow. Some weeks it's a full-blown blizzard. When you open your door, it's to a wall of snow. The power flickers, then goes out. It's too cold to sit in the living room anymore. So you get back into bed with all your clothes on. The thing is, when it snows all the time, you get worn all the way down. You get tired of being cold. You get tired of hurting all the time from shoveling. But if you don't shovel on the light days, it builds up to something unmanageable on the heavy days. Also, the snow builds up in other areas. Places you can't shovel. Sometimes places you can't even see. Maybe it's on the roof. Maybe it's on the mountain behind the house. Sometimes, there's an avalanche that blows the house right off its foundation and takes you with it. The neighbors say it's a shame and they can't understand it. He was doing so well with his shoveling. Living hurts. It's a weight that's with you from the moment you open your eyes till the moment you close them. This weight also whispers in your ear about everything you've ever done wrong. Tells you everyone's hates you. And you're worthless. My weight's mad too. It's terrible, and other than drugs and alcohol, nothing helps lift it off you. I have BPD, ASPD, and bipolar 2. Through all that struggle with depression, my heart's with you. It's like being in a dark forest and you have a flashlight that doesn't work. And you can make out the glimmer of light from other people in the distance wandering the forest, with their flashlights working perfectly fine. And you try to hit your flashlight to make it work. Try changing the batteries to see if that's the problem. But you just can't get the flashlight to work. So you're left with seeing other people around you enjoying their surroundings with their flashlights. The trees, the rivers, the wildlife, while you're just left alone in the dark. Imagine that everyone walks around with a backpack. Everything they do with their backpack on. You have your backpack, and it's filled with rocks. Everyone else is running around upstairs, and you wonder how they can do it with so much weight. You ask for advice and people say, IDK, just do it. Or to exercise. Or to get more sun. You try, and while it can help, you still can't run as fast or do as much as others. You are too tired to care anymore. The straps have dug into your shoulders. But when you complain, you are told you're exaggerating, being dramatic, or lazy. You try to push through and end up snapping at your loved ones because you are so exhausted and stressed and in pain. Finally, you go to a doctor, and they show you that you can take the rocks out of the backpack. They tell you that you don't have to carry rocks anymore. You just have to take them out every day. Some days there are more. Some days less. Sometimes you forget one and end up carrying it around for a bit. But life is infinitely better than when you were carrying around the rocks. Carrying a heavy suitcase full of sadness around all day. Every day. Sleep is the only non-drug reprieve. I exercise to keep me strong enough to carry the suitcase. But it's always there. I want to get up. I want to do the things I need to do. But something is sitting on me. I'm almost frozen. It hurts even to move my eyes. Everything is irritating and overwhelming. Thank goodness for therapy, medicine, exercise, and weed. Like having your soul sucked right out of you, then told to continue as normal, despite being a shell. Like wearing a suit made of bricks. Tired of life and being too tired to improve it. Everything becomes a chore and you feel as though there's no hope and that your life is stagnant and will remain as shitty as it currently is. Isolation is where you feel safe and socializing becomes a chore. Or you just avoid it completely. You live in your regrets and failures rather than living with them and learning from them. You let the smallest inconvenience of the day define you. Even if you cured cancer, you'll be thinking about how you came to work late that day and how much of an inconvenience you are. Can't. Too tired. I would share Emily Dickinson's poem, I Felt a Funeral, in my brain, with them. Imagine that everything you eat just tastes like plain oatmeal. Your favorite foods taste like plain oatmeal. You try speaking new and it tastes like plain oatmeal. You even try someone you used to hate, just to see if it's different. Oatmeal. Imagine wrapping yourself in a bunch of room temperature wet woolen blankets. Like a whole bunch. So you look like the snowsuit kid in A Christmas Story. Now go about your day. You're tired so fast because you're lugging this all around. It's hard to get food put together because you're lugging this all around. That's okay. You can just have a nap. Well, you're still in these wet heavy blankets, so you just kinda doze. Finally fall asleep, but that didn't make you feel rested. Now you have to get up. But you're still wrapped in all these wet woolen blankets. Your body is sore. You think about showering. But the idea of dragging all those blankets into there just seems exhausting. Maybe you'll just lay here until you absolutely have to pee. Maybe you'll just drink less so you won't have to pee as much. A friend calls you to go out, and while you can remember what good times you had with your friend, you can't imagine having a good time in all these wet woolen blankets. You'd just be tired. You'd just be pretending for your friend. And that sounds exhausting. Maybe have another nap. And just keep wearing those wet, woolen, heavy, cumbersome blankets day after day after day after day. Food is just something you put in your body because your body is yelling at you. Usually it doesn't make you happy, but every now and again it'll taste good for a few bites. And that little tiny spark makes you feel even worse. Because for just a second you remember life before the wet woolen blankets. But they wrap back around you and you lay back down for another nap. Playing the game of life on brutally hard mode. It makes everything difficult. You can't go on living like this. But you can't tell anyone because you don't want to waste their time. Walking through an endless tunnel by yourself. Reducing the world to a speck of light in the distance that you can never quite bring into focus or arrive at. Imagine the week after your uncle you liked died. But it lasts months or years. And nothing bad had actually happened. Then you feel better for a few weeks. Then back to how it was before. For me it feels like helplessness. Knowing I should be doing things. But I just can't get myself in gear. I'll slowly make it to second and third gear. It gets better for a while and then bam. I'm back in neutral and the cycle starts all over again. I thought it felt like living in a wet tent. It's like seeing a kid get ran over right in front of you and can't even muster a meh in response. You're dull to everything. Nothing gets you high. Nothing gets you low.